Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and congratulations on your election as Speaker to this place. I rise today with pride and a deep sense of responsibility as I deliver my first speech in this place. Thank you for indulging me as I share a little about myself and why I'm here and what I believe in. I begin by acknowledging the Palawa people, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. I pay my respects to elders past and present, and I recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. I commit to walking alongside Aboriginal Tasmanians in the fight for truth, justice and treaty. To the people of Bass, thank you. You have placed your trust in me and I intend to honour it every single day. My story begins with family. My grandfather migrated to Tasmania in the 1950s from Segosino in Italy and worked on the hydro dam project at Trevellum. He was part of the generation that quite literally helped build this state. He came here chasing opportunity, seeking something better, and worked hard to make a life. His story is one of sacrifice and quiet contribution. He was one of the thousands of migrants who left behind familiar landscapes, language and family. The hydro schemes they built didn't just generate electricity, they generated opportunity, powering industries, jobs and communities for decades to come. They built the assets that belong to every Tasmanian. Migrants to this state brought with them not only their skills and their labour, but also cultures, traditions and the values that enrich our community and make it vibrant. My grandfather's legacy, and the legacy of so many other migrants, is that our state is at its best when we welcome people, when we are inclusive, and when we value their contribution and when we commit to building a future together. Honourable Speaker, I didn't grow up imagining a life in politics. I grew up in Carrick, a small country town in Meander Valley, attending Hagley Farm Primary School and then later on St Patrick's College in Launceston. My first job was behind the counter at Birchall's in Launceston. Birchall's was the oldest bookshop in Tasmania and they started trading in 1844. Birchall's closed its doors a few years ago, but I know that many people in Launceston have very fond memories of that shop and I certainly made some lifelong friends there. I later had the opportunity to work for Senator Helen Polley and Jeff Lyons in the Federal Parliament, where I learned about parliamentary process and the responsibility of serving the community. I've also worked in banking and the early childhood education and care sector. Each of these roles taught me something different, but all of them grounded me in service and community. And like many of you in this room, before I entered this place, I had the opportunity to serve in local government, serving on West Temma Council for the last 5 years and the last 3 as Deputy Mayor. That role taught me a lot about collaboration, accountability, and the importance of being accessible to the people that you serve. It also grounded me in the practical realities of what our communities need, how to manage a budget, and how to get things done. I'm very proud of my time on West Temma Council, particularly in improving governance, in encouraging tourism to our region and contributing to the expansion of Lagana and the new industrial tech hub, which we've recently seen Fermentaz HQ open, which is very exciting. And I'm sure that that new precinct there will generate lots of jobs for Northern Tasmania, so that's very exciting. But it wasn't until I found my place in the union movement that all of these experiences came together, a place where I could fight for fairness and where I found my voice. Over the last decade, I've worked as an organiser for the CPSU, supporting public sector workers all across this state and advocating for the services that Tasmanians rely on. I'm a unionist to my core, and that will never change. The Tasmanian public sector is under immense pressure at the moment, and I'll be bringing their stories to this chamber. I've seen the lengths that workers go to and what it takes to hold a broken system together. I've seen the effects of understaffing and under-resourcing, the tough decisions that are made under pressure, the broken complaint system that has a real impact on workplaces. But I've also seen the love that people pour into their work, and I've also seen innovation and excellence, despite all of those pressures. It's been a privilege to work alongside thousands of public sector workers and learn from what they do. Organising and representing workers has taught me the importance of consultation, negotiation and persistence, skills that are just as vital in the Parliament as they are in the workplace. Experience has shown me that progress doesn't come from shouting the loudest, but from building relationships, finding common ground and never losing sight of the people that you're fighting for. And that's the approach that I bring to this Parliament. Collaborative, grounded in real stories and focused on outcomes that make life better for Tasmanians. Looking back on my time at CPSU, I was fortunate to work with three very different but equally remarkable leaders. Tom Lynch was the person that you wanted in the room when things were falling apart. Calm, steady and smart, he has that rare ability to take the heat out of a crisis, cut through the noise and bring everything back to what matters. Thurza White, by contrast, brought a different kind of energy. Dynamic and brilliant, with an instinct for knowing the right move at the right moment. Working with her meant momentum, and she has this amazing ability to inspire those around her. And my friend Natalie Jones more recently has taken a leadership role at the CPSU. She's clever and insightful, very quick on her feet, and she has a way of making complex challenges seem much more manageable. Natalie's strength is seeing the angles that others have missed and knuckling down and getting a job done. Together, Tom's steadiness, Thurza's drive and Natalie's insight showed me the many faces of leadership. I also acknowledge my former colleagues at CPSU, some of who are in the gallery today. Gabby Robertson, Kylie Farrell, Gareth Davies, Trina Murant, Joe Roberts, Craig Greer, Deb Bradley, Phil Gath, Lily Midgley and John Retallick. I can't thank that team enough for their support of me over the last few years, but particularly in the lead up to this state election. Honourable Speaker, I have spent my union career backing in the people that hold this state together, the workers who are the backbone of this state. They're the ones who answer the call when things go wrong, who carry whole communities through disasters, and who show up quietly every day and make things work. They are essential. Workers in hospitals and schools, librarians, dispatchers, youth workers, social workers, park rangers, ICT workers, biosecurity officers, Homes Tas employees, child safety officers, administrative staff, emergency services workers, court staff, lab techs, legal practitioners. I've advocated for them, sat in their break rooms, organised through their hardships, cultural changes, budget cuts, program changes and restructures, negotiated with them and elevated their voices. That advocacy will continue in this place because our communities rely on those services. I also wish to acknowledge the other unions that I've worked closely with over the last decade, particularly HACSU, including my northern comrades Laura Binns, Ben Vigers, Megan Thomas, Jeff Blythe, Mashuka Khan, Danny McCormack, Lucas Digney, Vivek Foot and Kristen Swain. That's my children, sorry. He almost made it through. I also thank and acknowledge SDA, AWU, TWU, AMWU, ANMF, ASU and the AEU. I've stood with their members and they have backed in mine. That is solidarity. And I also acknowledge the work of Unions Tasmania in advocating for the some 50,000 strong union members in this state in their fight for safer workplaces and better wages and conditions. But my advocacy has not just been about workplaces, it's also been about families, children and communities, because they are the reason that strong services matter. There is nothing more important to me than the health and wellbeing of children and young people. For more than 15 years, I've chosen to support and volunteer my time in organisations dedicated to this cause, because that's where our collective future begins. For 5 years, I served as the board chair of Laurel House, the sexual assault counselling and support service in the north and northwest of Tasmania. That experience left me with no doubt that the fight against sexual violence is not one with empty words, hollow promises. It begins with proper political will, resources, and the courage to face uncomfortable truths in our society. Survivors deserve nothing less. And I've also had the opportunity to serve as a long-time board member of Playgroup Tasmania. I believe that every family deserves connection and support in those early years, and Playgroup Tasmania has been providing those services for generations of Tasmanians. And as a life member of the Child Health Association of Tasmania, later known as Families Tas, I know the difference that support can make for a family. For over 100 years, this organisation delivered services offering maternal health advice and family support. Its closure was more than the end of an organisation. It was the loss of a trusted voice for families. We know that too many children in Tasmania are growing up in poverty. Too many families are facing impossible choices between rent and food, between medication and fuel. Children and young people are falling through the cracks, and we can and we must do better. I believe deeply that every child deserves to grow up safe, supported and protected from harm, because too often it's women and children who pay the price for society's failure to act. Every person deserves to feel safe in their own home, in their relationships and in community. At this point, I would like to acknowledge Honourable Michelle O'Byrne, former Speaker of the House, for her lifelong contribution to the Labor movement, but particularly for her advocacy around children and family and sexual violence and women. Together, we advocated for stronger family violence supports and legislation alongside our friend and advocate Ali Butcher, whose loss is deeply felt. I'm so pleased to see that Michelle has recently been appointed as the Ambassador for Gender Equality, a role that reflects her dedication and leadership. We have a lot to do in this term of Parliament, and you've probably got a fair idea about the things that are important to me from what I've spoken about today. But before I move on to my thank yous and close, I also want to speak very briefly about the Commission of Inquiry into the Tasmanian Government's responses to child sexual abuse. The Commission of Inquiry laid bare harrowing truths, not just from decades ago, but from the present day. It was a reckoning, and it must be a turning point. One of the clearest recommendations was to close Ashley Youth Detention Centre in Deloraine, and that must happen. We owe it to survivors, and we owe it to everybody who bravely shared their story. Honourable Speaker, I think that commitments and promises matter. Closing Ashley Youth Detention Centre is especially important to me because someone very close to me was mistreated there. And I can tell you that that harm doesn't just disappear. It lingers and it hurts generations to come. I hope to use my time in Parliament to genuinely advance the causes that I care deeply about and for the benefit of my community. And I'd like to thank the incredible people that helped me get here today. People who believed in me, Labor members, friends, family and volunteers. Campaigning's never a solo act, and mine certainly wasn't. To Emily's List, thank you for backing in women like me. To Pamela Anderson, your fierce resolve helps more women make it into these halls. And to my campaign team, thank you. To every volunteer who knocked on a door, handed out a flyer, made a call. I really appreciate it. Hunter Meany, your drive and your leadership carried us through, even when we had nothing else left in the tank. I also acknowledge Young Labor and my broader campaign volunteers, and there's a lot of them. Tom Snow, Princess Delaney, Vadan Radulovic, Gavin Howarth, Tamne Gabir, Michael Campbell, Vincent Chen, Corey Perkins, Seamus Donnellan, Isabel Griselge, Robert Gemmell, Alec Hayes, Jack Hodson, Craig Horwood, Mia Jankulovska, Dylan Kumar, Callum Rees, Reggie Mickelson, Sammy Sastrapaja, Sky Wilson, Sam Goss, Kerry Sun, Lucy Fawcett, Oliver Bailey, Shepherd Bailey, Elliot Bell, Alice Fair, Sue Robinson, Bray Kaplan, Rob and Sue Griffin, Rose Walker and Jack Budgeon. I wouldn't be here without you. Now, I've spoken a lot today about where I've come from, and now I'd like to talk about who I come home to. My husband Nathan and our two boys. Archie and Ted are my everything. My husband is never short on frank advice, and I really value that. If we can't justify our decisions, then we probably shouldn't be making them. And thank you, boys, for your patience, although little Ted hasn't been so patient today, and for their understanding for when at times if I've missed dinner or school pickup. Thank you. Every decision that I make in this place will be guided by their future, guided by them and the future of every Tasmanian child. I also want to acknowledge my mum Anita. She's worked incredibly hard to provide opportunities for me. I also acknowledge Nathan's parents, Michael and Deb, and his family, my brother-in-law Zach and his wife Ree, and my niece Lucy were also here in the chamber today to support me. Big thanks also to the Honourable Member for Franklin, Dean Winter, for encouraging me to stand, and to Member for Bass, Janie Finlay, for her energy and support, and also the PLP, who have so warmly welcomed me since being elected. I've been a Labor Party member for 20 years this year and volunteering in community organisations for a long time. And through this involvement, I've got a wide circle of people that I rely on for their guidance and to have the occasional argument with. I particularly acknowledge Ben Dudman, Lara von Stiglitz, Amanda Diprose, Jennifer Houston, Andrea Port, Caitlin Roach, Adam Gore, Justine Brooks, Beck Griffiths and David Price. Sounding boards for me who are not afraid to give an alternate view or suggestion. Honourable Speaker, we are living in a time of deep uncertainty, but also enormous possibility. My electorate of Bass is filled with success stories and potential, and I look forward to getting out in the community and meeting and connecting with people. In this chamber, I will fight for decent jobs and the services and infrastructure that Tasmanians need, for integrity in our Parliament where big decisions are made, and for systems that support people. And I will be guided by the values that brought me here. Thank you.